Dump it out. No, dump it out, dumbass. Right here. Yeah, that's what I thought. You're a fucking thief. Yeah.
Excuse me.
All right. Oh, police should be contacting you.
Oh, this is fun. What the fuck? No, fuck this shit, bro.
Okay, so Democrats are freaking out about election 2022, and, by the way, election 2024. The reason is their standard bearer can't bear a standard. Their standard bearer cannot even bear a brick at this point. Like, he can't carry a brick. Their standard bearer might actually have almost been eaten by a bear yesterday. He wandered into the woods. He was on the White House lawn, and he just starts doing what he does, man. He's just wandering. I'm going to go see the birds, Joe. I need it. I'll see what I'm. Which way am I supposed to go? Oh, a black bar.
Mr. Haney?
Oh, bye. If you can't see this, he literally is just wandering into the trees. And where am I going? And they're like, I should go this way. He's like, oh, okay, are you sure? Maybe that way? No. This way, that way. All around. Where am I? Is there pudding? Matlock is on. Let's go. And Jill is like, Joe, just come this way, Joe. So there's the actual president of the United States wearing the long green coat next to Joe Biden. So that's exciting stuff. Meanwhile, Joe Biden can no longer pronounce Camilla Jayapal's name. So that's good. The mashed potatoes are spilling out of his mouth at an increasing rate.
Roger, I want to thank you for your leadership. The two other members who couldn't be here but send their greetings. They are both very good friends and wanted to be here. Pramila, wait, I don't know her name. Pramila Jayapal and Ami Barra wanted to be here.
My two very good friends. I don't know their names. One of them is Pramed. My favorite part is where he has to reset himself by pushing his upper front teeth. That's the thing that actually happens in this video, folks. Again, if you can't watch, you're missing half the fun. Because, or half the horror, depending on how much you love the country. Joe Biden, literally in the middle of that clip, because he couldn't pronounce Camilla Jayapal's name, stops himself, forces his dentures back in or something. Like, go back for a second to that. That's in a. This is not a good look. There it is. Ay. What? Oh goodness. Yeah. That is some bad stuff. By the way, apparently Joe Biden is going to be also pursuing gun control by making sure there are no more than 8 bullets in a round. He said that the other day. 8 bullets in a round. Now you may be saying to yourself, wait a second. Isn't there only 1 bullet in a round? In fact, isn't that what a round is? Well, wrong you are. It turns out that there are 8 bullets in a round, sometimes 13 bullets in a round, sometimes 1 million bullets in a round, according to Joe Biden, gun expert, who has suggested in the past shooting it through the door if somebody is on the other side who you don't know who it is, and or blasting a shotgun into the air to warn people off like they're living in an 1877 Western. Here is Joe Biden on guns.
My legislation says there can be no more than 8 bullets in a round, okay?
Yeah. Okay. Sure, okay. Meanwhile, Joe Biden says, you know what? I'm really worried that if you elect the Republicans, they are going to crash the economy. I have some bad news, Joe. I have some very, very bad news about crashing the economy and the status of our economy right now. Again, it must be wonderful to be Joe Biden because every morning somebody wakes you up and tells you you're president. But at some point, somebody should wake him up and tell him that he wrecked the economy. Here's Joe Biden.
If you're worried about the economy, you need to know this. The Republican leadership in Congress has made it clear. They will crash the economy next year by threatening the full faith and credit of the United States for the first time in our history, putting the United States in default unless we yield to their demand to cut Social Security and Medicare. You heard that one, right? You all heard them say that. That's what they're saying. Let me be really clear. I will not yield.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I hate when he leans into the microphone. It's so creepy. Treats that microphone like it's a 12-year-old girl's hair. Let me be clear. I will not yield. Joe, you're scaring all the children. It's bad. By the way, what he's actually talking about there is that Republicans have said that they might not raise the debt ceiling again unless you get your spending under control. Well, since no one has ever gotten their spending under control, you know what you could do? You could actually get your spending under control. This dude likes to brag a lot about bringing down the deficit. By bringing down the deficit, he means he spent more money than any human being who has ever lived on planet Earth by a whopping margin. And yet, he brought down spending last year when we blew more money into the economy than at any time because of COVID. That's his case. But he's fiscally conservative. But if you ask him to be fiscally conservative, then you're shutting down the economy and you're going to ruin everything. Karine Jean-Pierre, worst White House press secretary in American history, she was out there explaining that Joe Biden has actually lowered your costs, man. Joe Biden is making your life better and cheaper, which is weird since everything is way more expensive. That is the nature of inflation.
You mentioned the St. Louis shooting, and the president just a little while ago was talking about how he'd like to pass an assault weapons ban. What's the way forward if the Democrats don't control the House?
His message to Americans is there's a choice. There is going to be a choice that Americans are going to have to make. Without me getting into elections or getting into politics from here, but it's very clear. Think about what Democrats do. Think about what congressional Democrats and this president have already done. Lower costs. If you think about what we're doing with our economic policies, creating jobs, making an economy that doesn't leave anybody behind, but builds it from the bottom up and the middle out. That is so incredibly important. And what congressional Republicans want to do is take that all away.
As a precaution.
She's just a giant bumper sticker machine, is she not? Pretty amazing. So none of that's true, by the way. You give us low costs. The Republicans want to take away the low costs. Where are the low costs, lady? At some point, you might want to show them to us. By the way that Joe Biden has attempted to lower costs when it comes to gas, for example, is just by depleting the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to levels that we've not seen. That is not what the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is for. You're not supposed to lower the gas prices just because you have a bit of a political problem at home. It's supposed to be for when people literally cannot get gas, which is not the problem in the United States. In fact, the Saudi energy minister came out today and said people are depleting their emergency stocks and using them to manipulate the market when their own original purpose was to alleviate supply shortages. Yup. The Saudis hitting that one on the head because Joe Biden basically engaged in corruption by asking the Saudis to increase oil supply just before the election. It's okay when Joe Biden does it, guys. And then he threatened them. Totally okay when he does that. If Donald Trump calls up the president of Ukraine and he says, I want you guys to investigate Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, and then he threatens to remove military support, that was the allegation against him. At its most grave, that was the allegation against him. That's impeachable. If Joe Biden does it openly to the Saudis, we're all supposed to nod and grin and pretend that it's not any sort of a problem at all. And then he taps the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which again is a misuse of that reserve. All of this because he's so great at this. He's great at this. Meanwhile, even Janet Yellen is saying, guys, inflation may not have peaked. Inflation may still be going up. That's a problem, guys. If you're trying to make the case that Joe Biden should remain in office because he's great at fighting inflation by spending $1.4 trillion on an Inflation Reduction Act that doesn't reduce inflation, this is a problem when your own Treasury Secretary is saying this.
It's not over. She can only do so much, but she talked about the Fed. Watch this.
I have confidence that inflation will come down over the next year or two. So I believe that what we're doing will work.
Do you believe it's a case?
I'm not positive. I don't want to forecast inflation numbers. The most important thing is we still have inflation that's unacceptably high. But there are good indications earlier in the pipeline that inflation will come down.
In a year or two, good luck with that as a presidential running message, by the way. If we hit 2024 and the inflation rates are still at 6%, Joe Biden, whoever succeeds Joe Biden, ain't getting reelected. It is just that simple. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into Ted Cruz's appearance on The View with everything COVID vaccine related, including whether the vaccine ought to be given to children. If you're not a member, click the link in the description to join us.
So you guys probably are aware that TPS...
Well, Elon Musk is in at Twitter, and he is firing everyone as he pledged to do, and I am here for it. I think everybody else who's been on Twitter for the past several years and is not wild leftist bent is here for it as well. Twitter's moderation has been a bleep show for a very long time. They've been banning people willy-nilly right and left, people ranging from Alex Jones to the Babylon Bee, to Jordan Peterson, for a wide variety of unspecified crimes. They can never quite be specific enough as to what exactly was violated. Their standards are incredibly loose. Somehow, the Ayatollah Khamenei, he's fine while he's railing about how the Jews should be destroyed. But somehow, Jordan Peterson is banned for saying that men cannot be women. Twitter's content moderation policies have basically been a weapon on behalf of the left. And what it's meant is that everybody for example, when there's controversy over whether ivermectin is a good treatment for COVID-19, you couldn't even claim that ivermectin was a good treatment for COVID-19, even though it did work for a lot of people and is still controversial as to how well ivermectin works. You still could not say, even though the evidence showed that widespread masking did not stop the transmission of the virus. You weren't allowed to say that vaccines were not effective in stopping transmission of the virus. These are things that you were not allowed to say on Twitter. If you said them on Twitter, then you would immediately have your account suspended. The number of personal friends that I have who have been suspended from Twitter is incredibly high. And we're talking about people who are not wild people like that. All these people have been banned outright from Twitter. Well, now Elon Musk is back. He's in charge. He is firing everyone as well. He said he was going to fire 75% of the staff. And frankly, I think that's low. He needs to go a little bit higher than that because the simple fact of the matter is Twitter is a bloated bureaucracy. It's filled with people who had jobs like diversity, equity, and inclusion manager. It is a platform. It is a platform for speech. Elon Musk understands that. Now, Elon Musk did say yesterday, and he is correct, that this does not mean that there are no standards at Twitter. It's not as though you should be able to get on Twitter and actively threaten violence against other human beings. And it's even possible that Elon Musk has his own Overton window. Right? The Overton window is the window of acceptable speech. And we all have in our own lives. There's certain people we don't want to be friends with, we don't want over at our houses because their opinions are just too vile, right? You wouldn't want a skinhead Nazi over at your house with your kids because your Overton window is personally not big enough to encompass that, nor, in my opinion, should it be. You should not be forced to have that person over at your house. And if you own a platform like Twitter, presumably there will be an Overton window beyond which there are certain opinions that are just too far. They just go too far. But those should be as close to the legal line of free speech as humanly possible, meaning that there are certain things that are not protected by free speech in the United States. Pornography is really not protected by free speech in the United States. We like to pretend that it is, but historically speaking, it just was not. The idea of a violent threat, that is not protected. Full-on defamation is not protected by free speech in the United States. Well, if you're a platform, what you should try to do is hew as close to the First Amendment line as humanly possible, because, indeed, that is what you were created to do. If the whole idea of Twitter is that it was a digital town square, then treat it like a digital town square, meaning that it is a neutral forum for discussion. And that's going to include crazy people who are over there on the side, standing on an apple box and shouting at everybody. It will. The good news is that unlike that town square, where that person is noise polluting, in the digital town square, you have a mute button. You have the ability to algorithmically shape what it is that you wish to see. And I think that Elon Musk understands this. So you can try it, Twitter is insane. People are beeping openly online. You're seeing people from the left, from the media, Rhino dancing, you're going to run screaming from this place. What are we going to do? We're going to have to leave. Taylor Lorenz, of course, was the first actor. She's leading that charge. Hilarious. You know, I need to use my Substack so people can see my stuff over there. Substack is also a free platform for a bunch of people. Taylor Lorenz hates, including with the TikTok. Well, now, according to the Associated Press, Musk has taken control of Twitter and ousted the CEO, CFO, and the company's top lawyer, two people familiar with the deal spent Thursday night. People wouldn't say if all the paperwork for the deal had been signed or if the deal had been closed. And Musk is in charge of the social media platform. He fired CEO Parag Agrawal, CFO Ned Siegel, and Chief Legal Counsel Vijaya Gadde. Neither person wanted to be identified because of the sensitive nature of the deal. Now, you saw Vijaya Gadde just get absolutely eviscerated on one episode of Joe Rogan. Tim Pool just destroyed her on Joe Rogan, right? Just asking her about how exactly you make these decisions as to what is bannable and what is not. She had no answers whatsoever. Agrawal has presided over the widespread feeling that Twitter is a forum for the left, and if you say anything that violates the most strictly held standards, then you will be banned. A few hours after the firing, Musk bird and breed. You know, just from a pure objective level, Musk is a lot of fun. I mean, is it okay to say that a billionaire is fun? I know that we're supposed to believe that billionaires are very dour or world-controlling. They'll have to be do-gooders like Bill Gates, who I guess is having fun on the side of his pool house. But aside from that, he's supposed to be, you know, a person who's out there to, you know, very serious people. I love the fact that Musk is not totally serious. I think that is a wonderful, wonderful thing for the world. The departures came just hours before a deadline set by a Delaware judge to finalize the deal on Friday. He threatened to schedule a trial bill for Liberty region. Although they came quickly, the major personnel moves have been widely expected. They are almost certainly the first of many changes the Tesla CEO will make. Musk privately clashed with Agrawal in April, immediately before deciding to make a bid for the company, according to text messages later revealed in court filings. About the same time, he used Twitter to criticize Gadde, the company's top lawyer. This tweet was followed by a legal harassment of Gadde from other Twitter accounts. This is one of the garbage lines the media like to use, is that if you tweet about somebody, and then a lot of people don't like what that person said, and they harass that person, that's your fault. Okay, as probably one of the most harassed people on Twitter, I've never complained about that, because guess what? I've got a mute button. I have the ability to not look at Twitter. I have many things. Like, Twitter is a wonderful outlet for me to be able to tweet my thoughts. It's also a place filled with stupid people and annoying people. And you know what I'm able to do? I've never called for a single person to be banned from Twitter. I have not. Because I have a thing. It is called a mute button, and I can use it whenever I please. For Gadde, an 11-year Twitter employee who also has public policy and safety, the harassment included racist and misogynist attacks, in addition to calls for Musk to fire her. On Thursday, after she was fired, the harassing tweets lit up once again. And this notion that you are responsible, if you criticize a person, a bunch of other people decide to act in bad fashion against that person, you are then responsible for this. This ends political speech in the United States. Because guess what? We all criticize each other. And yes, there are a bunch of people out there who act in stupid fashion and then harass those people. Does that mean that you are responsible for the harassment? This is the game that the media love to play. The media are particularly angry here because you have to understand what the game here was, particularly for the mainstream media when it comes to these big social media platforms like Facebook or like Twitter. And it's true for all of them. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Like, the media have their standard. Here is what happened. Back in the 1970s and 1980s, there were only 3 major media outlets, TV outlets. And you had some newspapers, like the New York Times and the Washington Post. Nothing else had mass readership. Then, the rise of the internet happened in the 1990s, the late 1990s, started by Drudge Report. Then, all of a sudden, you had a wide variety of outlets that people could access for their news. Now, I'm old enough to remember the beginnings of the news internet in the late 1990s, early 2000s, when suddenly everybody could get their information from different places. And the way that you would access that information typically is you would bookmark like 10 pages. I mean, nobody has ever used a bookmark in the next generation. I'm talking about my generation, the millennials. The millennials, what we would do is we would actually just bookmark like 10 pages. And you'd go in the morning and you'd check. You'd go to your bookmark for Fox News, your bookmark for Drudge Report, your bookmark for Town Hall or Hot Air. Right? This is what you would do. Then these big social media platforms sprang up, and they started garnering billions of eyeballs. And so all of these news outlets started to move their feed onto the social media platform. These became the place where you would access your news. So from now on, if you wanted your cultivated news feed, it was much simpler than hitting 10 different bookmarks to just have a cultivated news feed that brought up all the news you otherwise would see, and there was some algorithmic programming that allowed you to see some news that maybe you hadn't clicked on before. That's the way that the news feed worked. And the same thing was true of Twitter, right? You would follow all the accounts of those people you were already bookmarking. And then you would get the news from Twitter. Well, what this allowed is for the possibility, because it was all via Facebook or all via Twitter or all via Instagram, it allowed for the possibility that all of those major outlets would just turn the spigot, and suddenly all the places that you were following would just be silenced. And suddenly you were getting your news again from the mainstream media. All the people that you had been attempting to avoid for 20 years, suddenly you were getting your news from them again. You had to hear from the Washington Post or the New York Times. You couldn't hear from Daily Wire or from Breitbart or from any of the other right-wing outlets that you normally would follow. And the mainstream media loved this. This was their favorite thing in the entire world. They loved it because it reestablished a media monopoly that they had lost with the rise of the internet. And naturally, this ticked a lot of people off. And one of those people was Elon Musk. And you ticked off the wrong billionaire. Because it turns out that it's going to be hilarious, because 100 years from now, when the history of the United States is written, an inflection point is going to be Twitter banning the Babylon Bee for a headline about how men are not women. That's an actual historical inflection point. That's it. Because the left got so crazy over their skis on this. They got so bullying and vicious to the heads of the social media companies that the heads of the social media companies decided that they were basically going to crack down on anything that violated left-wing scruples. Because that's what happened here. I mean, if you actually look at the difference from what Jack Dorsey, the head of Twitter, used to say about free speech, what he started to say about free speech about 5 years into his tenure at Twitter, if you look at the difference between how Mark Zuckerberg used to talk about free speech versus how Mark Zuckerberg talked about free speech just a couple of years later, you can see a radical shift that happened. Both Dorsey and Zuckerberg, they used to talk about free speech in exactly the same terms that I'm talking about free speech. It should be the broadest possible window that allows for all people to have conversations, and if you don't like it, you can turn it off. I keep citing the speech that Zuckerberg gave at Georgetown in 2018, I believe, in which he talked about this, right? He openly talked about we need to have a broad platform for speech. I'm not the great arbiter of what's true and what's not. It is not my job to determine what you should see and what you should not see, because you're an adult. And then, because of all the pressure that was brought to bear in the aftermath of the election of Donald Trump, all of these social media companies collapsed. Because you start to see Democrats and members of the media start blaming all of these social media companies for all the ills of the world. And all these social media companies, which were treated up till then as wonderful, wonderful things, because after all, these wonderful, wonderful social media companies had allowed for things like the Arab Spring, you remember this, or they'd allowed for the election of Barack Obama, where all the talk in 2012 was about how genius the Obama team was for manipulating the data via Facebook in order to win re-election. It was a genius team. Then, of course, when Trump's team did it with Cambridge Analytica, then all these social media platforms became super bad. And Facebook then became very bad. So in the aftermath of Trump being elected, which was a world-shattering event for the left, they started to push really hard on the social media networks. Because it couldn't be that Hillary lost because she was a crap candidate or because she did a bad job. She must have lost because the social media networks had been penetrated by the Ruskies. Or the social media networks were too broad-minded. And, free speech is a real dangerous thing. Free speech could be undermined by free speech. And so they started to clamp down. And the social media bros, because they were weak-kneed, also started to clamp down. They pressed on that pressure to the user. Yet Dianne Feinstein openly threatening Mark Zuckerberg, the senator from California, saying, if you don't regulate yourself, we will regulate you. And so Zuckerberg and team would say to these legislators, okay, fine, please regulate us, right? Create a system of regulation that makes for an even playing field. And Democrats say, no, it's up to you. You have to please us. Dance to our tune. And many of these social media platforms did. And then along came Elon Musk. Elon Musk said, I'm not going to dance to that tune. I think that your tune is stupid. I think that your tune is monopolistic. And this is why the panic has set in. This is why the media are now attempting to treat Elon Musk as though he is some sort of threat to freedom. I love their line. Their line is Elon Musk is a threat to freedom. Billionaires in charge of major platforms are a threat to freedom. Except for, Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and George Soros and, all the billionaires we like, those guys are not a threat to freedom, no matter how many billions of dollars they set into the Western democratic system. Those are the good ones. But Elon Musk is a bad one. Why? Because he disagrees with us. That means he might break our monopoly. We'll get to much, much more in just 1 second. We still have to get to Joe Biden celebrating an extraordinarily tepid and actually quite negative economic report. We'll get to more on John Fetterman being hailed as a hero. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.
Telling my mom I'm going out, but my phone is connected to my speaker.
I will be here. All right. Bye, sweetheart. Should I lock the door or no? No, I'll be back quickly. Actually, yeah. Okay, I'll lock the door.
Telling my mom I'm going out, but my phone is connected to my speaker.
I will be here. All right. Bye, sweetheart. Should I lock the door or no? No, I'll be back quickly. Actually, yeah. Okay, I'll lock the door.
Telling my mom I'm going out, but my phone is connected to my speaker.
I will be here. All right. Bye, sweetheart. Should I lock the door or no? No, I'll be back quickly. Actually, yeah. Okay, I'll lock the door.
I know, that would kill him.
Disney has just fulfilled one of the long-standing dreams of radical liberals with nothing better to do than make problems. Disney, I'll let some random adult on Twitter explain the significance. This is not a drill. Disney Plus finally made a short with a plus-size lead. It's called Reflect, and it's part of the Short Circuit short series. Let's just say I was sobbing. At first I thought that this was parody. I don't think it is. I think, what's the story here? The story is that Disney releases short films sometimes for people to see. And in this case, they made a short film about a fat girl. And this does not seem like international news to me. It was trending on social media. There's a lot of commentary about it. This is supposed to be very, very significant. And apparently it's very significant to this woman, not a girl. Finally! They finally made a short film about a fat girl. I didn't know this was something people were longing for, that anyone really was longing for, but it finally, and this one was brought to tears or sobbing. Then another adult woman took to Twitter and said, 16-year-old me needed this Disney short before I quit ballet because I didn't want to be the fat girl in class. There were a lot of others. These were just the ones. Twitter. Pronouns in bio. Checks out. Adult number 2. Pronouns in bio. And right. You always want the pronouns in bio educating your kids, right? No, I don't think so. I don't have much of an opinion about Disney making a short film about a fat girl. Okay, that's fine. I don't watch short Disney films. I don't watch any new long Disney films. That's okay. Though I have opinions about a great many things. This is not something that I have particularly strong feelings about. However, adults obsessed with Disney, and more broadly, who are obsessed with I have friends of mine who, as adults, childless adults, sometimes even just alone, will go to Disney or they just can't wait for the next children's movie to come out. They want to go see the next children's movie on the first day of the movie. Or they buy toys. They buy children's toys for themselves just to have the toys. And so they get to play with the toys. And it's not just a few weird people that I'm making fun of. This is a social phenomenon that seems to be growing, in particular among my generation, the millennials. And it's really weird, and it's obviously related to the fact that our generation is not having children. And they're not getting married, and they're delaying everything. They're not having as many kids, and they're not having kids at all in many cases. and these are obviously related, because there actually is something natural about wanting to experience childhood things as an adult. That's called nostalgia. That's totally normal. And there's a way to do it. The way to do it is to have kids, and then you get to experience it with your kids. You get to take your kids to Disney movie. And that's not something that I'm exactly eager to do, but maybe I'll get a kick out of part of the movie. Or, you buy your kid toys, and then you play with the toys with the kid, and that actually can be kind of fun. That's good. That's the right way to channel your nostalgia for childhood and to keep your imagination alive and all this. The bad way is to pretend to be a child. The bad way is to never grow up. When you're a child, you do childish things. When you childlike things, you do the things that children do. When you grow up, you're supposed to, when you become a man, you're supposed to put away the things of a child. There's actually a Kenny Loggins song about this. The Pooh Corner song.